Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action.
Hi, y'all. This is Jerry Williams, a.k.a. TV Jerry. In February of 2022, I interviewed the makers of a documentary called Headwaters Down, which follows 5 friends as they paddle down and document Virginia's James River, all 350 miles of it. It's now a 2-part series that will air locally on VPM and nationally on PBS. I'll have a link to the podcast on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
We had Florence Pugh attached at a certain point, and then we had Anya Taylor-Joy attached, and then she dropped off. And that kind of put us in a lurch, and there was only a few actors that the studio was kind of like interested in us proceeding with, and then we got a video from Sadie Sink of her playing one of the demos that Jeremy had.
That was today's guest, Michael Gottwald, talking about the eventual casting of Sadie Sink from Stranger Things as the lead in the new movie he co-produced, Odessa, which dropped last month on Hulu. Like one of the first films Gottwald produced, the Oscar-nominated Beast of the Southern Wild, this one is a unique film. This time it's a sci-fi musical with a rock score. We'll talk about Michael's start in Richmond, the other shows he's produced, including attending the Oscars, and some of the challenges presented by Odessa.
Sifter Review of the Week.
The Studio on Apple TV. Seth Rogen and his longtime partner Evan Goldberg created this series that looks at Hollywood through a fictional studio's perspective. Rogen plays the newly appointed studio head who grapples with numerous problems, mostly revolving around art versus commerce. The individual scenes are shot in one continuous take, which adds more frantic energy to the dialogue. Episode 2 was shot entirely in one take. There are numerous other characters who add their own neurotic personalities, including Ike Barinholtz, Catherine Hahn, and Catherine O'Hara, who sadly disappears after the first few episodes. To add some sort of verisimilitude, real Hollywood notables are peppered throughout, including Martin Scorsese in a hilarious final scene, Ron Howard playing against his nice guy type, and more. Each episode focuses on a different aspect of the filmmaking process, with plenty of industry in-jokes. There's an occasional laugh, but it's more sardonic jabs that provide the amusement. Ultimately, it's lots of fun watching Hollywood lampooned from several angles with this sharp and incisive satire. I gave The Studio 4 out of 5 stars. So, Michael Gottwald, do you remember when we met in 2013?
Yes, I do. Yes, for sure.
Oh, good. We were at the Women's Club, and you were talking about Beast of the Southern Wild, obviously.
Yes.
And you got to go to the Oscars.
I did, yes.
And how was that?
Had that not happened when we were?
I think it was before. I can't remember. But how was it?
But yeah, no, it was a fun night for sure.
The room was a lot smaller than you would think based on television. Less like a theater and more like you're on a TV set, which I guess you kind of are, you know?
Yeah, right, yeah.
You know, the whole thing actually ends fairly early, and then you go to like you go to a party that's there that everyone's invited to, and then there's all these various ones, and then eventually you just end up with your close circle of friends, you know, very late into the night, and it was a good time. Did
people come up to you, like anybody famous come say, "Oh, I loved your movie, it was so great"?
No, I mean that they don't do that really to producers.
That's true.
They did it to Ben, the director. Yeah. He had a couple pretty amazing experiences. I remember being next to him when Steven Spielberg came up to him and shook his hand and, you know, congratulated him on the movie, which was pretty awesome.
I've heard of him. So what got you into this crazy business anyway?
I was always interested in movies. I didn't know for sure that I was going to do it or pursue it, but I went to a school that had a good film program just in case. It wasn't the kind of program where you make a lot of movies. It wasn't like a UCLA or USC. It was a liberal arts college where you watch a lot of movies and discuss them and study the history of the industry, and you study, you know, everything from East Asian cinema to art film to horror movies to adventure films, you know, everything.
And where was this?
This was at Wesleyan University.
Okay, right.
In Connecticut. You know, I studied a bunch of other things, but I ended up with the most, you know, credits and classes in film, and made a senior thesis film because despite everything I'm saying about how everybody is studying film and like really watching it, the theses were tended to be actually making films, which is odd because it's not like we had much training in how to actually
Right,
actually do that.
So you produced it, directed it, or?
I directed it, and it was very clear to me in directing it that I did not want to be a director. It was good. I'm glad that I had that experience, because I was just like, oh no, this isn't for me.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I learned in high school that I'm not an actor. I was in theater, I did theater, did plays. I'm a director. I'm not an actor. So I had kind of a similar experience to yours, but
Yeah,
different way.
exactly.
Right.
But I really did enjoy working on other people's theses. It's, either as an assistant director or a producer or something like that. And so, after college, I didn't immediately get back into it. It was more that, I guess it was in the first year out of college, a friend of mine was from school whose thesis film I had worked on was making a short film in New Orleans. I happened to be going through town on my way back to Richmond, and stopped in, and he told me about the short film. And I said, cool, I would love to come back here and work on it with you. And that led to me executive producing that movie, raising some money for it, and working on it on the ground in New Orleans. And then that led to when there was a chance to make the feature film of that. And that turned into Beasts of the Southern Wild.
Footnote.
Beast of the Southern Wild was a 2012 film that Michael co-produced, and it was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Picture.
We didn't really start full-time work on that feature film until early 2009. So between my graduating in 2006 and getting to New Orleans in early 2009, I toggled between a lot of different things. It was like sometimes working on film, sometimes working in politics and stuff like that. So it took me a minute.
How soon did the Department of Motion Pictures, which is a great title, how soon did that come about?
Within a year, I guess it was October of 2013. So we had gone to the Oscars that February, and we decided in the fall of 2013 to kind of form a company. We had gotten a first look deal with Searchlight Pictures coming out of Beasts. So that gave us a little bit of, they give you a little bit of money as part of a first look deal. And that was able to pay our overhead, which, at the time we were based in New Orleans, and the overhead was not so, it was not very expensive.
Right.
And so that gave us a chance to kind of go off to the races, like hire somebody else and really turn it into a company. So I think technically we didn't sign the paperwork until about literally 10 years ago this month. So 2015, but all the time we were working on other projects, and we just decided we have common interests. We like working together. We don't want to just work with this director who did Beasts. We're interested in documentaries. We're interested in other people. So we decided to continue to do that. And so we were able to do our own thing outside of the Department of Motion Pictures if we want to, and we're able to do stuff together at the Department of Motion Pictures when we want to as well.
So I noticed that in the credits for Beast of the Southern Wild, Jeremy Jasper got a special thanks, and he came back into your life a little later.
Footnote.
Jeremy Jasper is the writer and director of Odessa. How did he get involved in Odessa?
The short film that I was referencing that was being made in New Orleans prior to Beasts of the Southern Wild, it was Ben's short film called Glory at Sea. The actor in Glory at Sea, the main actor is Jeremy Jasper.
Aha.
So that's how I got to know Jeremy. And Jeremy was not an actor. He was a musician who was kind of transitioning into being a director in his own right, a music video director, a commercial director, etc. We just spent a lot of time together in New Orleans because he was making this short with us. And then when his career kind of took off as a music video director, he was always like, I want to make my own feature. And so that turned into Patty Cakes, which we made in 2016, came out in 2017.
Footnote.
Patty Cakes was directed by Jeremy Jasper about an aspiring rapper.
Then we went about working on the next one, which is Odessa. And of course, that took a long time to write and get off the ground and all that stuff. So 2017 Patty Cakes was, and Odessa, we shot it in 2023, and it came out, just a couple weeks ago, basically.
You managed to get to shoot most of it post-COVID.
Oh, yeah, very much post-COVID. And post-COVID and pre the SAG strike, just under the wire.
Right in the middle.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jason Bennick, who was the writer, director, composer, worked with Jeremy. What was the inspiration for Odessa, or as somebody pointed out to me, Odyssey, as in reference back to the classics? But what was the inspiration for that story?
So Odessa is sort of based on the Orpheus myth, basically. Right. And it was like this kind of myth that Jeremy kept coming back to. And funnily enough, Glory at Sea, the one that he starred in, is also sort of a riff on the Orpheus myth. But Jeremy always wanted to make he had this figure in his head of like a kind of a female Bob Dylan troubadour greaser character, which is who Odessa, turned into. He wanted to make a movie that felt a lot like the films he loved watching when he was a kid, in the like stuff from the 70s and 80s, kind of midnight movies, B movies, that
It
sort of
has that
stuff.
vibe. It definitely has that vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So he wanted to kind of place a character like Odessa in a world like that, but also have it be a musical. And so Jason is his musical partner and writes all the music with him, produces all the music with him. And with Jeremy, it always starts with the songs. Like he sort of figures out characters through playing songs and figuring out what they're saying in the music, and then he starts writing the script. And so that was part of the process for Odessa.
Surprise guest drop in.
Now we're going to jump back for a minute because somebody dropped in to say hello to you, flash you back to the old days.
Miss Hunley.
Hi, Michael Gottwald.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm good.
Footnote.
Jenny Hunley is a local theater artist and has been teaching theater at Collegiate School for 34 years. So how do you know Michael Gottwald?
Well, I taught Michael Gottwald at Collegiate School.
You did.
A long time ago, Michael.
Very long ago. 1996, 97, 98, something like that?
Yeah.
Did you see that instinct coming out when he was an innocent little student?
Actually, I did, because he was so funny but smart. Like, there was cleverness about that.
And what about on stage? I think you said Michael actually had some experience.
Oh, you know what I looked up more than anything? You wrote a show with Laura
I did, yeah.
your year called Too Marvelous for
For
Words.
words, yes. Johnny Mercer.
And how did that come to be?
We were commissioned. It was asked of us by Tom Hildebrandt at the time.
Footnote.
Tom Hildebrandt was an upper school theater teacher during Michael's time at Collegiate.
I think he was not happy with the final product, or at least not happy with us, and as a result, I think that I was like punished for my senior year. I got like a chorus line role
In Hello, Dolly.
in Hello Dolly, exactly.
Yeah.
But you did have some other roles.
I did, yes, including my peak was probably with Miss Hunley and Bye Bye Birdie.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Your peak, absolutely, as the father. Michael's family dynamic in that show was great.
Yeah, I remember doing a SNL style showcase in your.
Oh, yep, the 8th grade showcase. It was a highlight comedy sketch.
And was it funny?
Yeah, actually they were.
That's good.
They actually, though, had a very, I think, mature sense of humor that was probably borderline appropriate or not, and I let them get away with things. Because if it was a larger audience, in our school culture, probably not so much, but 8th grade humor for 8th graders was highlight. Do you remember in drama class, I talked about developing characters so much that you guys started to make fun of me?
Yeah.
This is the story, it was character.
Yeah.
And anytime we were, thinking about a story or a plot line, it was like, it's character. I remember you going to the West Hampton and us talking about what movies were at the West Hampton, because I was like, what kid is this?
Yeah, really.
And you really did have a genuine interest in older film, storytelling through visual,
For sure.
but then a ham bone on stage. That's
I was, yes.
Footnote.
For those newcomers to town, the West Hampton Theater was a mostly art house cinema that was on Grove Avenue near Libby. That space is now a mixed-use development, including condos.
But really, the idea of what you've gone on to do to support creative storytelling, it's so powerful.
Oh, thanks.
Well, Jenny, thank you so much for dropping in. It was great to see you. We're old buddies. We've known each other for a long time. And it was great to have a connection with you and Michael.
Michael, take care. If
Thank you.
By Collegiate, come visit me.
Of course.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So now we'll just fast forward to Odessa.
Sure.
How did you get involved?
Well, it's because I had produced Patty Cakes, Jeremy's first movie, we just wanted to keep the team together. I mean, a lot of my role in Patty Cakes was to help develop the script with Jeremy. And so with Odessa, it was a similar thing. It took a long time to kind of like read a bunch of different drafts, give a lot of feedback. And
it's not an easy sell.
on the one hand, it's an out there film. On the other hand, it's like a quest film. It's a journey film. I think it was very appealing to talent. And so we took it out and got people attached, and that helped get it kind of set up at Searchlight.
My next question was about the talent, and you've got some great people in it. Sadie Sink, of course, from Stranger Things, Kelvin Harrison Jr., and Regina Hall, and Murray Bartlett. Who was the first one of those people you got that said, yep, I'll do this, and they kind of maybe helped it go further?
Sadie was the first one because we had Florence Pugh attached at a certain point, and then we had Anya Taylor-Joy attached, and then she dropped off. And that kind of put us in a lurch because we were a bit like, what are we going to do now? And there was only a few actors that the studio was kind of like interested in us proceeding with. And then we got a video from Sadie Sink of her playing one of the songs, that one of the demos that Jeremy had. And we were all just pretty wowed by it. And then we put it in front of Searchlight, and they were extremely excited by it. And then her agent did the thing of like talking all about how popular she is from Stranger Things, and
she can sing.
She can definitely sing. So, and that's what the video showed, is not only could she sing, she could play guitar. And Jeremy was just like, this is the person. I love it.
Yeah, she was great.
So yeah, we got her first, and then I think that Kelvin was next. And then, then I think we went to Regina. And then we were already on the ground in Croatia when we got Murray. Yeah, that's kind of the order that it worked in.
Regina must have loved it because she got to have so much fun. That look, she was great in that.
Yeah, she had a lot of fun. She didn't want anybody to recognize her. That was her thing. So.
At first I did, and I was like, wait a minute, let me look at the IMDb on this thing. And there she was. You just said Croatia. I'm assuming, is that where it was shot?
Yes, that's where we shot.
And that's interesting because the production design is very unique because, of course, you have these wastelands. I guess they were easy to find. And then you have I shouldn't say city, but, the more civilized areas of the area. Yeah. Why did you go there? I'm assuming budget was the main reason.
Yeah, budget, and creatively, it had a look that, we could use for this otherworldly place that Odessa was going to. First of all, Croatia, compared to a lot of European countries, is fairly cheap. And also there's a great tax incentive program there. So we were able to take advantage of that. You would need this double the amount of money to shoot the equivalent in the United States, basically.
Right.
How I thought about it. So yeah, we had a set amount. Searchlight gave us the parameters, and we wanted to get the most bang for our buck. So that's what we did. And also, as you can see, they would take us around on location scouts, and we came across, for example, that thing that is basically like the entrance to Satellite City, where the guy is kind of tied up and Dion is giving her speech or whatever. Right. That's an old abandoned hospital outside of Zagreb.
Cool.
You see stuff like that. And it also has a very varied landscape. You have farmland, you have mountains, you have the water, the coast and whatnot. So we were able to do all of that, and work with a production company that's based there, and they were very supportive and helpful.
It was interesting. One of the things I mentioned in my review too is you've got all this rusty wasteland, and then you have these little moments of electronics. It's the modern world all of a sudden, stuck in the middle of that, which was kind of an interesting concept.
Yeah. Wanted to mix those things at the same time.
What would you say was the biggest challenge as a producer from getting it made?
I'd say the biggest challenge was in post. I think that post was really tough, trying to maintain perspective on what's working as a story and what's not, because we'd been living with the story for so long, and we were so proud of a lot of what we pulled off visually in making the film, that I think it was hard to kind of figure out what is the best version of this movie in post-production. And post-production went on a long time, went on for more than a year, and you just kind of get to a point where you don't have much of a perspective anymore because you've
been looking at it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I thought that was just a challenge. It's not, the shooting itself was not actually as I've been on far worse shoots for sure. We had to change the schedule up a few times, and there was weather stuff and
the whatever. Usual stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the usual, but it wasn't anything crazy. And in fact, it was really lovely to work with the Croatian production company we worked with, had a great art department. It was just so cool to see this stuff come to life. And I don't know. I recommend Croatia as a place to shoot.
It's popular for tourists now too.
It is, yeah. We got to spend some time on the coast after the shoot, which was nice.
And you talked about the visual effects. One of the other things that was kind of interesting about the movie, and also you talked about the movies from back in the day, the 70s and 80s, was the psychedelic editing and the psychedelic visuals.
Yeah, that was very important to Jeremy. The psychedelic, the way that the plasma looks. and the kind of strange graphics that feel both retro and psychedelic and kind of futuristic of Plutanovich, when he's on the TV and all the way that that stuff all looks. Yeah, just creating like visual tapestry, visual language that people haven't really seen before.
Yeah, definitely has that unique look. So I don't know if you directly had anything to do with it, but getting it on Hulu, what was that process like?
Well, yeah. So the way that it works is that Searchlight, who funded the film, and they had a deal with Hulu, but there was a very particular deal during COVID where they would greenlight a certain number of films that were going to go directly to Hulu, and they largely don't do that anymore. Searchlight, I mean, the movies will ultimately end up on Hulu, but most of what Searchlight does now goes theatrical first and then goes to Hulu. Yeah, we were part of that contract, and so by just Searchlight signing us up, we knew that the film was going to Hulu. Because Hulu is now, I think, majority owned by Disney at this point, and Disney and Searchlight is part of Disney. So
Right, right. And sadly, you did not get any theatrical.
no theatrical. I mean, I guess we could have, despite the Hulu, but it would have been really tough to. And I think that they thought that the prospects for the film doing enough business theatrically was not significant. So
Although it's a shame, kind of in a way, if one of those films that if it had broken out in the right way, it could have been a big cult hit.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's next for you and the Department of Motion Pictures?
Well, we have a couple different movies that are slated to be shot this year. One is with these directors, Bill and Turner Ross, who I've worked now on six. This will be our sixth film together, their seventh film overall. They've had movies that I've worked on with them, such as Chopatulis, Western, Contemporary Color, Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets, and Gasoline Rainbow. This one is called Edge City, and we're shooting it in New Mexico, and we'll shoot it in June. It's a pretty small budget, pretty micro budget thing, and they do really interesting work where they come from nonfiction, and they have kind of used their nonfiction chops and experience to spin a new kind of fiction, I think, that feels very, very real and authentic and works with non-professional actors and all that stuff. And then we have another film called Here for the Weekend, which we're making in the fall in Palm Springs. It's a first-time feature director named Casey Maderno. Got a great cast lined up for it, still looking for a couple different roles. Yeah, it's kind of like a Clueless idea. Three women in Palm Springs, like experiencing love and life and romance and trying to chase success and everything. So
Kind of like Mid-Century Modern. Did you see that?
um,
Three Gay Men in Palm Springs, the one with Nathan Lane and Matt Bomer that was just released.
no, I haven't seen that one. This one's
Yeah.
actually three trans women in Palm Springs.
Oh, that's wild. Huh.
Yeah, and great actors attached to it. Eve Lindley is the main lead. She's amazing, and if you meet her, she's just got all this charisma, and she's in this movie called National Anthem. She's also on this Jason Segel show on Apple that I can't remember the name of. Anyway, she's also in that movie Bros with Billy
Right, right.
Eichner.
And
She's
National Anthem, which was a great movie. Not a lot of people saw it, but I loved that movie.
Oh, cool. Then you know who I'm talking about. She's the main
Sure.
the main girl in it on the horse and all that stuff. So she's the main star of this one.
Footnote.
I reviewed American Anthem and actually featured a cast member on a podcast, which I'll include on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com. And that Jason Segel show is called Shrinking. The one I mentioned, Mid-Century Modern, was created by the team that created Will and Grace.
Oh, cool.
It's 90s sitcom vibe, but it's still enjoyable. Think you might get a chance to shoot something back in your home state?
I'm sure one day it would be lovely. I wish that there were slightly better tax incentives in Virginia than there are now.
So does Andy. He was on last week and we had a little discussion about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw Andy briefly at South by Southwest, actually.
Footnote.
Andy Edmonds is the director of the Virginia Film Office, and I'll include a link to that recent podcast on the webpage for this show at TV Jerry.
I would love to. I mean, it would be so convenient for me, for sure. I get to spend some
Sure.
time at home and everything. And yeah, it just depends on the project and whatnot.
So one last question I always like to ask everybody: when you're not working on your own movies, what are you watching? Whether it's on streaming or a movie you've seen lately?
I have two kids, so it puts a limit on my time, mainly because by the time they're both asleep, I am tired myself. I talk about and work on more movies than I watch, but I tend to watch when I do have the time. I tend to watch movies, not series so much. Let me see. I'll tell you what I watched recently. I just went to go see Sinners, actually, the Ryan Coogler movie. I really like that.
Yep, I just reviewed it yesterday, actually. Yes, it's an art film, obviously. It's Ryan Coogler. It's not the typical vampire, and it's a cultural art film.
Yeah.
It's more about the culture than it is about the vampires.
Yeah, very much. I mean, I think it's cool that it spends basically, I mean, you don't really get into the horror stuff until the third act, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
like 90 minutes of just pure kind of character stuff. I don't know. I was never bored. I felt so immersed in it and compelled.
Yeah.
What else did I see? I mean, like, because I live in New York, sometimes I'm able to go see, stuff from older movies that are showing here.
Right.
And let's see, what is one that I'll pull up my list for you. Oh, you know what I just watched for the first time is Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 1978 version.
The Donald Sutherland version.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
cool. Yeah.
I loved it. I've never seen that. I'd never seen it before.
I reviewed it back then, I'm sure. So.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah.
There's another movie that, people should check out if it's out near them called Freaky Tales by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. I'm in Park Slope right now and they sort of live near here and I see them every now and then. And yeah, it's just a great movie. I don't know. It's really fun. It's very again, sort of retro. It takes place in 1987 and it's an anthology movie. It's like 3 short stories basically, but they're all connected. And it's just a lot of fun.
I wanted to see that. It came and went in a week. Unfortunately, but that's showbiz. Well, Michael, it's great to see you again. And hopefully we'll have a chance to do this again for the next movie.
All right. Thanks so much, Jerry. I appreciate it.
That was today's guest, Michael Gottwald, who most recently co-produced Odessa, which dropped last month on Hulu. It's a unique sci-fi musical with a rock score, and I'll have a link to it on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
Coming soon. In theaters.
Clown in a Cornfield. This takes place in a fading Midwestern town when a previously popular clown reappears as a terrifying scourge. From the producer of Smile. Shadow Force. This is yet another spy duo. This time it's Kerry Washington and Omar Sy, who have a bounty on their heads and go on the run with their son to avoid a unit of shadow ops that's been sent to kill them. Juliet and Romeo. Yet another version of the Shakespeare romance set to music, with stars including Rebel Wilson, Jason Isaacs, Rupert Everett, and Derek Jacobi.
TV and streaming.
The Tattooist of Auschwitz on Max. This series tells the story of an Auschwitz prisoner who was put in charge of tattooing ID numbers and fell in love with a fellow prisoner. 60 years later, the older version, now played by Harvey Keitel, tells his story to a writer played by Melanie Linsky. Joan Rivers, a Dead Funny All-Star Tribute on NBC and Peacock. This is a special remembrance of the legendary comic. Fred and Rose West, a British horror story on Netflix. Recently discovered police recordings and first-person accounts tell the story of 2 of the UK's most prolific murderers. Duster on Max. Set in the 1970s Southwest, chronicles the life of a getaway driver for a crime syndicate from J.J. Abrams. Snakes and Ladders on Netflix. In a renowned school, a teacher becomes involved in a dispute between 2 students. What appears just to be another incident will change the protagonist's entire life. Overcompensating on Prime. This follows Benny, a football player, as he struggles to accept his sexuality in college, finding himself overcompensating as he tries to appear as something he's not. Created and starring Benito Skinner. You can subscribe to this podcast on the usual platforms or go to TV Jerry, click on the podcast tab, and there's a link to enroll. Next week, we're going to hear from the team that produces Virginia Homegrown for VPM, which is marking its 25th season. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sifter, including literally thousands of reviews,
visit tvjerry.com.
That's a wrap.